Grab your print or digital copy of Go Queen magazine today. Stay inspired by the incredible stories and features inside. Visit our website to grab your copy now. Hey Queen, welcome to another episode of the Q Chat. Today, we're honored to have Melissa Odum, a true trailblazer who has turned adversity into triumph. As the founder of Queendom Aesthetics, Melissa's journey from a teen mother with an incarcerated mother to a top beauty industry mogul is nothing short of inspiring. Her story is one of resilience, determination, and the unwavering belief that you can create your own destiny. Join us as we discuss her rise in the beauty industry, her passion for empowering women, and the lessons she's learned along the way. Stay tuned for this empowering episode of Recognizing Your Own Greatness.
She's a queen about her business, working hard on a mission. Head high, purpose driven, crown on, never tilted. Go queen. Go queen. Go queen. Go queen.
Thank you guys for joining another episode of the Q Chat. Today I have a very special guest, and her name is Miss Melissa Odum. And Melissa is a skin spa care owner. She helps Queendom Aesthetics based out of New Orleans, my hometown. And Melissa has a very powerful story of all the things that she's overcome as a young teen mother. She also had a mother who was incarcerated, and she's a story of surviving and resilience. So we're going to have a great conversation about her early beginnings, of course, her being an amazing entrepreneur, and of course, our favorite topic, self-love. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to meet with you. And like I was saying in your intro, we all know you in New Orleans, of course, is owning Queendom Aesthetics, but you really do have a true testimony and a story of all things that you've overcome and a true example of resilience. So I wanted to get started and asking about your early beginnings and just how was your experience? I know, like you said, your mother was incarcerated with a 28-year prison sentence. So I know you've had a lot of things that you've overcome. So I just wanted to get your early background first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in New Orleans, uptown. I went to elementary, middle school, and high school in New Orleans. My grandmother actually raised me, so you are correct. My mother has done a total of 28 years of my life in prison, and I'm 35. So as I can just date back to growing up, my mother had a total of it's four of us. I'm the oldest of three boys. And so my mother had me at about the age of 26 or 27. And then she had my little brother. We are about a year apart. And so I believe, from what I'm told, she had me and then she had my brother. She, ended up incarcerated, wound up coming home, got pregnant with another brother, went back to prison, and then had another brother. But I guess my grandmother had just got to a point to where it was like, okay, you didn't came home with two of these children. This is all that I can take. So two of my other brothers had been adopted by their parents. And so my grandmother continued to raise me and my brother Quentin. And so just growing up in New Orleans, uptown, I think that I've always felt a little different. I was a challenging teenager. So I tell people all the time, I wish that now I wish the now in mental health and those conversations would have been spoken of. I say let's date back to 20 years ago when I was 8 years old, or when I was a young woman dealing with the challenges and stuff that I was experiencing. I was always told that I was just bad. Never was asked like, hey, well, what's wrong? And I think that my family didn't consider the fact that, like, hey, this child is being raised by her grandmother in a house full of cousins. Her mother is in fact incarcerated. Her father has passed away when she is as she's 12 years old. Something she needs therapy, not anger management. And so I spent a lot of time going to juvenile detention centers. I spent a lot of time in anger management. I was very temperamental. And of course, as a child, I couldn't process what that looked like for me. But I allowed my adversity to become my norm. And so I would, fuss, fight with everybody. I became disrespectful to my family only because I just felt like maybe there should have been a little bit more love and care to me as a kid, but I didn't have those experiences. So I grew up very tough knit. All of my cousins were boys, so I grew up in a house full of boys. So that aggression and that masculinity in me as a young girl, it was just supernatural to me. So as I am older as a woman, I look back and I'm like, dang, that was really unnormal, right? But I was a challenging kid. I don't take away from that, but I think that I needed, like I said, therapy over, anger management. So as I got to a point where as I got older, this was the last and final time that I went to juvenile. My grandmother, they brought me from juvenile to go to court. And I remember just being in shackles as a kid. And I just remember being so embarrassed, and I vowed that that was my very last time. I was probably about 14 or 15 years old. And I just said, this is embarrassing. And I always knew I was greater. But unfortunately, I just had a lot of anger as a kid just based off of my circumstances. And I didn't know how to speak to that and express myself. So, like I said, that was my last time in juvenile. And it was a lot. So by the age of 16, I was in fact pregnant with my oldest daughter, Zayel, who is 18 years old. And all I can just remember is, 16 pregnant, Hurricane Katrina hit, and so I moved to Las Vegas. And I think that moving to Las Vegas is the reason why I am so I'm on average because I was able to be exposed to a little different than New Orleans at a young age. So I understand what it's like to just be around a diverse group. How to handle myself in certain circumstances with a diverse group, right? But as I gotten older, 18, I was pregnant again. I had my daughter when I was 19. So now this is 19 with two children. By the age of 20, I was pregnant with my third child. This is my son, and this was with someone that I went to high school with. So I had my first three children by my 20th birthday. And I was just a young mother. And so, it's definitely been some trying times, but those are my very, very humble beginnings.
Mm. Wow, that is such a story. I mean, that's so much that you've gone through. And then, honestly, it's some of the things that you've been through. Like you said, so many other children have gone through the same things, maybe not exactly in the same timeline, but they've been
Mhm.
misunderstood children. They've been kids. A lot of children are being raised by grandparents. A lot
Yeah.
of children, they have things that are not being addressed properly. Like you mentioned, you needed therapy. And, from our upbringing, therapy is just something that is
Mhm.
really not a conversation,
No.
unfortunately, that happens in our households. That's not it. Like, either you go to church, you pray, that's it. But what is therapy? So, especially for the youth, what you said is something else because there's so many young children that just needed somebody to pour into them. And like you also said, you knew you had greatness inside of you, but
Yeah.
the scary part is there's so many young people who have so much potential and they deserve a chance. Every young child deserves a chance, but sometimes you don't have somebody to pour into you to say you have greatness in you. Like you said, you knew it, but imagine there's so many young people, they have so much potential. They really do have greatness in them. And unfortunately, they don't even see it in themselves. So I
Yeah.
just commend the fact that you could acknowledge that you had greatness in you. And a lot of times, too, we think our past is something that's supposed to be a hindrance, but that past is a motivation. Like you
It
said,
is.
that situation, you said, I'm embarrassed, and you use that as a drive. So it also shows too, we can take the bricks that was thrown at us and we really can truly build a mansion. So I want to ask you to, just from your upbringing to when you, like you said, you knew you had greatness inside of you. So what was the shift from your upbringing and then being a teen mother? And I know that was a lot of work. And you went to Vegas, and like you said, you were able to see a different point of view of life from your regular environment, which is also something that I know helped motivate you. So, what was the shift like when you were like, okay, I know I have greatness in me? How was it finding your purpose? Because where you're at now, you have a skill, you have a trade, you have something, you built something great, a business. So, how did you find your purpose after that when you were in your early 20s?
Oh, so purpose. I think it took me a long time to find the purpose that I needed to be in the last 9 years, because that's how long I've been in business. I've always just wanted to fight the odds. So, growing up, I was told that I would be exactly like my mother. And so for me, that was my drive to be the total opposite. Like everything that I did was to be the total opposite. And certain things, because it's in us, not on us. I still hate some of these attributes as my mother, but I always wanted to be different. And so as I gotten older, and I started to just feel like, hey, I deserve more out of life. I can have more. And I actually had a friend who I was working at Walmart. I was 18 years old. And my friend said to me, she was like, you need to go back to school. Like, you're so smart. Like, you need to go, do something with yourself. And it's so funny because I was actually just in her wedding a few months ago. And this was, I mean, it was phenomenal for my growth, because she was actually like the first person that I would say that was like, girl, you need to go back to school. You're smart. And I always I knew I've always been a great leader. So my goal was always to be in leader. I've always been in leadership no matter where I worked. So I've always maintained a job. I've always wanted to have a good job. And so once I was done with my phase in Walmart, like I said, my friend took me back to school and was like, girl, you need to be, she helped me get my transcripts, brought me to Delgado, and was like, girl, like, I didn't have a car, I was on a bus. And she was like, you need to be in somebody's school. So that being in that school environment, so I enrolled at Delgado for business management. And so being in school, it just gave me a different train of thought. Like just being around a bunch of people who, it wasn't weird. Like they were there to get an education. They were from neighborhoods and environments just like me, but their goal was to soar. And so for me, I adapt. So if I'm looking at you and you look like me and you have similar background as me, I use that as my motivation. Like, okay, well, I know for sure if you can do it, I definitely can. If you have this mindset with all that you've been through, I can as well. So over time, I just always just kind of wanted to be more and have more. But like I said, I went to school back at 18 years old, 19 years old. And then I had, all these children. I had 3 children, and it was just so different for me. But every time I would enroll into a new program, I decided to try to go to school for surgical technology. I didn't like it. Um, I tried to go to school for medical assistant. It didn't work for me. And I was just like, I have to be something. And so I just tried and I tried and I tried. I ended up one of the saddest times, I tell people all the time, one of the saddest jobs that I had was I was a housekeeper. And I never forget, I lost my job at Walmart. So backstory, my son, which is my third child, he passed away of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. So me as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old woman experiencing, I have 2 little babies, 5 and 6 years old. And then now my son has passed away. I'm like, Lord, what am I gonna do? So I ended up losing my job at Walmart, and I ended up going on to like Indeed, and I seen this job that said room attendant. So I didn't know what a room attendant was. I just thought I would be attending to something, I did a room, but I didn't know exactly what that meant. So I go to this job interview, get the job, and I go to work the next day. They give me the offer, getting paid $10 an hour. And so they come pushing a cart in front of me with like betting, and I was just like, but here I am. I was unemployed, so I had to eat that and take that job and do that job. And I did it for about 6 months, but I remember walking around every day. All my coworkers thought I was insane. I used to be like, I have an education. Like, I cannot be working here. I will never work a job like this. And so it was just like, I knew my purpose was just bigger than my environment. And I'm just like, absolutely not. So, but I did what I had to do. And I tell you, that job definitely built character in me. From there, I was like, I need a better job. And so I started applying at big jobs. I was like, I'm trying to work at a bank. I've always loved money. My goal has always just been to be financial literate. And so I remember a girl that I used to work at Walmart. She wrote me on Facebook. She was like, I was like, I need help with a resume. So she helped me make my resume, and I applied to Capital One Bank. And I just remember going into that interview. It was like a panel interview, and they were just asking me, why should we hire you? And I told them a million reasons as to why. And I remember just by the time I got home that same day, they told me that I was offered the job. And I was just like, okay, I'm here for it. I was so excited because I was just like, oh, this is a stepping stone to go from like Walmart and then a housekeeper, and then now in banking. And so when I got into banking, I knew that my purpose was financial literacy. I went to always the bank, the guys will come to the counter and get $100,000 cashier checks. And I've never been afraid to say, well, what do you do for a living? And I feel like they would tell me everything, right? Because they didn't see me as a threat or somebody that would go and do these things. And half of the time they were probably just, flossing and being proud of their accomplishments. And so from that moment on, I was just like, I definitely can be more. I can have more. My customers would come in and just talk to me. I was getting promoted in Capital One. And I was just like, you know what? I am going to be great. I don't know when. Greater does come later. And I just knew I had a purpose. So I tell people all the time, at that job at Capital One was when I knew that I was, because that was great for my self-esteem, knowing that I could get that job. I went from cleaning beds and toilets to working in a bank was just insane at that time. And so that was in 2012, 2013. And so from that moment on my mindset shift. And I was just like, I just seen so much money. I remember counting so much money. And I was like, I'm going to have money one day. Like, I'm going to have what they have. I'm going to be able to invest. And I started to just really speak that into my life. And so no matter what people told me, because, I was considered like the hood girl. But I just got to a point before social media was a thing. I was telling my homegirls and people in my neighborhood and people on Facebook, like, girl, you need to come open up a bank account and open up a credit card. And this is the why. And I started just to explain the whys and educate my community. Now, I knew God wanted me to educate. I feel like deep down inside, I am an educator. But I just couldn't figure out what realm would I be educating in. But God truly blessed me. After that job, my mindset shift. So I like to say 2012 at Capital One Bank, that's when I knew that I for sure had purpose.
Wow. And
Yes.
so many things you said. I love how you said greater comes later, because sometimes, when we are going through a period in our lives, we'll start beating ourselves down because we want the money now. We want the
Yep.
blessing instantly. We want to pop it in a microwave and get it,
Yes.
within a
Yes.
minute. But like you said, greater comes later. And it's hard to process at the time. Sometimes you're going through something because you're like, okay, like you said, you knew that you were better than what you were doing. And I think also, sometimes people have a hard time saying, okay, this is beneath me. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with saying something is beneath you. It's not,
Nothing.
you're not trying to insult the next person, because what God gives you is for you, meaning the other person don't have to understand why you think something's beneath you. And I think that's one of the things that maybe hold people back sometimes, because they really struggle with saying, hey, I really don't want to do this. This job is not me. But sometimes people
Yes.
struggle with it because maybe if you may be working a job that you absolutely hate and it's not for you, but that next person, hey, they're cool with it. They're
Yeah.
fine with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with you. So I do like how you said greater comes later. But another important thing that I think you touched on is mindset. It's
Yeah.
what we think. Our mindset is what really can drive us. And also, when you see someone who is in a stage that you want to be in, mindset says, hey, I know I'll be in that place one day. I'll
Yes.
probably exceed what they're doing. It's all about your mindset and pouring into yourself and talking into yourself. So that's extremely important. So, of course, I want to ask you, I know it being a esthetician that you had eczema, just reading on your history, and your
Yeah.
children had eczema. So that started your journey. So I definitely want to know what started your journey into skincare.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey into skincare, I will say in 2014, I had my youngest daughter, Carly. So backstory, I've always had eczema. I tell this story. I remember when I was 12 years old and my mother came home from prison, one of those many times. And she looked at me and she said, well, what's going on with your skin? And I'm like, girl. I don't know. I'm 12. I'm like, I don't know. There wasn't a skincare routine that I was privileged to see or hear or know about. And so this is why I will say I'm so grateful that my mother said that to me, because I ultimately, when I was a kid, I used to always want her to like, just, I used to be like, well, damn it, am I not good enough for her to want to be home? So with her saying that, I'm like, oh, I got to get my skin together. Maybe she'll think I'm pretty, whatever, whatever. But growing up, I always had eczema. I was called alligator skin. It had been a time. I remember, like, how the kids now wear like sweatsuits in the summertime, like jackets and all of that. I was that girl. Like, I was that girl. I remember just being 10, 11 years old wearing jackets in the summertime. I remember playing basketball and wearing long sleeve shirts underneath my jersey because I didn't want you to see my eczema in my arms. So over time, it was normalized for me. That was my skin condition. It was what it was. It didn't. And as I gotten older and my self esteem was built up on, and I was just feeling like the best version of myself, my eczema didn't phase me anymore. So it just was what it was. Girl, you put a little moisturizer on it, go on about your way. And so I had my first daughter, Ziel. She had eczema. I had my second daughter, Amari. She had eczema. I didn't get to experience my son, but I'm more than sure he would have had eczema as well. But when I had my youngest daughter, Carly, she had eczema, and it was just the worst I had ever seen. And so we used to bring her to her pediatrician, and the pediatrician would write off a steroid cream, prescription. And so we would apply it to her. It would definitely clear her up. But ultimately, what happened was she was so light skinned. And my baby was a chocolate baby, but it would like just bleach and lighten her skin. So I feel like God definitely put me in that transition to where I no longer could use dermatology or prescriptions because I wound up working at AT&T and T and I was cut off of Medicaid. And from that moment on, I couldn't get those prescriptions anymore, right? I couldn't do anything to manage her eczema anymore. And so I was like, I need to figure out a solution. And so I started doing just like research, like on lotions and creams and all type of things. And soap was one of them. And so I remember just doing some research on soap, and I was like, let me just try to make soap. And I remember one of my friends, she was very holistic at the time, and I reached out to her and I asked her how could I make it, and she was like, "Oh, girl, I'm gonna come over there and show you." She ended up never coming. So I just got on YouTube University and I learned how to formulate soap. So I never forget, I started making this one batch of soap. It was amazing. It's my original beauty bar that I formulated back in 2014. Anyways, I started making the soap from my kitchen, and one of my friends used the soap, and she was like, "Melissa, you need to be selling this soap." And I'm like, girl, please, like nobody is gonna be buying soap from me. We knew about the kitchen beauticians. So to me, in my mind, girl, me making soap was already different. I've always been a little different. So people used to think I was a little weird. And I'm like, nobody is gonna buy soap from me. And so I'll never forget 2015 French Quarter Festival. I remember just making a soap and cutting it up into little bitty samples. And I went on a Saturday and I just passed out, girl. I had the little picture that I wrote the little name of my business, which was, I called myself, calling it Real Black Beauties. And I was just like, you know what? And people used to call me Black Beauty. That was like my nickname back then. So I was like, I'm gonna call this Real Black Beauty for whatever reason. So, anyways, I passed out this soap on a Saturday, all of my little samples. By Monday, people were calling me like, "Hey, Melissa." No, they didn't know my name, but I just remember getting calls like, "Hey, I got some soap from you at French Quarter Festival. I would like to purchase more." Now, this was just Saturday, you know. And then Monday, people were calling for me to make full size bars, and I was just like, "Uh-oh, okay, I guess I gotta make more." And so I started making more. At the time, I was working at AT&T. People started to come to my job to pick up the soap, buy the soap. I was selling it for $5. I would ride my bike to meet you to get you some soap, and it just became very popular in the city of New Orleans. So, like anybody that I went to school with, people that I knew, I started just making videos on Facebook talking about it, and like I just started selling my soap. So the $5 beauty bars is where I started in 2015, making soap right from my kitchen. And it started to transition and help so many people. So like I said, it was only for eczema at the time. And people started using it on their face and saying it was helping them fade their dark marks. And I'm just like, now y'all exaggerating. And so I didn't know the power of what I had created, but God knew. He made sure that increased my territory. He brought people to me. People like my managers at AT&T used to be like, "Melissa, you can't do this here." I was like, okay, but that's my humble beginnings to starting out making soap because of a problem with eczema for my children. So I had already accepted this is my normal, but to see my baby suffer the way that she did, I was like, absolutely not. So I created a solution.
So, like I said, I just love it. And that's just how people start off. They'll come up with
Yep.
an idea, and you got to have that hustle spirit, number one, to get yourself out there. So, of course, I got to ask you, so how did it transition for you? Like, first, like you said, you made the soap. And again, I think you are good because you have good people that have poured into you, whether whether they just said it and didn't even know where it was going to
Yeah.
go with it, So you definitely have people just pour something into you. Like I said, they may not even realize what they were doing at the time when they said it. But so what transition from you? So like you said, you cut it up, you started at the French Quarter Festival, and now you have this empire. So how did you get to where you're at now? Like, where did you think, were you still at AT&T? You're hustling, you're selling the soap. What made you think, hey, you know what? I can take it further now and I can really become a licensed esthetician and have a brick and mortar. How did that transition start?
Oh, so that transition started. So during my time at AT&T, I was making lucrative money. Like my income was everything that I needed it to be. I was like the number one sales girl at AT&T on St. Charles Street, and I was just doing the thing. But I just with the feeling. So they did a pay cut. I will say that they did a pay cut where they were cutting 50% of our income. And at the time, I was just like, girl, wait a minute. 50% of my income, girl, I could work for myself. So now I'm into like, I'm on my power to the people stuff. I'm like, oh no, I can work for myself. I can sell my own product. And at the time, girl, I was only making about $500 a month. But I was just like, I knew I had something great. But I quit my, so I put in my 2 week notice at AT&T, and I did this prematurely. I really didn't have a plan. I just knew I was going to be selling my $5 soap. And so I quit that job. I resigned from that job, and things started to make a shift. It was just like, oh Lord, the sales wasn't selling. Like, it just didn't, I didn't see that increase. And so I had about 3 to 4 months taste of entrepreneurship, and I hit rock bottom. I remember right before Christmas, I didn't have enough money to buy my kids anything. My lights were about to get cut off December 8th. I just never forget all of these things and feeling like, damn, I'm about to fail my children. I'm going to have to go back and get a job. So once again, Indeed, that's my little place to go looking for me some employment. I applied to Verizon Wireless and they hired me. I remember starting that job in January. And so and though I was making good money, I was so miserable. I was not happy. I was just like, I just cannot work here. Like, this is not for me. And every day I would just say, you know what, I can't do this. I can't do this. I cannot do this. No, no. And I would tell my coworkers all the time, and they used to be like, I know everybody just thought I was crazy. So I never forget in May, I can't remember the day exactly, but I know it was before my birthday because my birthday is May the 16th. And so in May, I was like, I woke up one day and I got 99 orders online. And so that was my first day getting that many orders in one day. And so I said to myself, if I can do it in one day, I could do it again. And so from that moment on, and by that time, there was a local esthetician in New Orleans. She had did my daughter's spa party like right after I quit. So I quit that job in May, and I just started, just selling online. It just started to really grow, and it was doing good. And so a girl came and did a spa party for my daughter, and she was like, "You should go to." She was an esthetician, and she was like, "Well, Melissa, you already got your products going. People love your products. Your skin is beautiful. You should go to school to be an esthetician too." And I was just like, okay, but I had already started doing research, and it was kind of to me out of my budget. And I was like, oh no, that's too expensive. I can't afford that. But nothing but the grace of God, I still just went and took some tours at the schools and I applied. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to school to be an esthetician. And so I remember just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I applied that July. I didn't have all my documents in, so I was able to start in November. Once I got to school, and I thought I knew it all, right? Because now I'm making soap, I'm making money already. I'm like, girl, I know it all. I know skin. And so I get there and I'm like, okay, the anatomy of the skin. Oh, wow, we have that many layers of the skin. Oh, wow, there's grade 4, 5 of acne. Oh, wow, this is beyond my scope of practice. And so now the terminology started to come to me, and I was just like, you know what? I'm serious about this. I love this. I started doing facials. I remember just getting a little room on LaSalle and Louisiana and LaSalle. I think it was 2317 Louisiana Avenue. Don't quote me, but I remember getting this little room in the back of this girl boutique, and I started practicing doing facials, and I just fell in love with skin. And I started just reading books, and then I started to study plants, and I just got I fell in love with it. I just fell in love with everything of skin, everything about it. So many ways to heal it. I became privileged to ingredients and learning a little bit more and how they work with the anatomy of the skin, and I fell in love with skin. And so I tell people all the time, I graduated from esthetician school in 2017. I did in fact try to apply for jobs, but I'm telling you, God said, girl, you got to create your own job. He did not want me with working for somebody else. I don't think it's never been in me, but I did what I had to do. And so I remember being on Craigslist when I was in class one day, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna open up my own spa. And so I go on Craigslist and I see this space, and they had like this little thing where you could put your billboard, your sign in it. And I was like, I just always thought big. I just never thought small. And so I was like, I want this building. So I remember reaching out to a realtor that I knew. We did the application, did the tour of the building, and I graduated on May the 19th or something like that in May. July the 1st of 2017, I had opened up my first spa. So that was Essence Weekend. It was like a block party. So many people came out and they celebrated me. They were so happy for me. And from that moment on, I was like, after seeing all those people at my grand opening, I said, I got me something. I definitely, this is not I'm not mom and pop. I'm big. I'm international. And you know how that little saying, like, you're supposed to be thinking big, back a few years ago or last year sometime. And I was like, you know what? I'm thinking big. So I thought big. I opened up my first location. It started to thrive beyond my beliefs. It was just too small for me. And then in 2018, I was like, you know what? I got to find me something bigger. I was coming to the end of my lease. 2019, the beginning of that year came, and I found me my headquarters, which was at 5800 Bullitt Avenue in New Orleans East. 5,000 square feet. It was huge. It was everything that I needed. Because at the time, I was running my spa location in Mid City, the first location, but I was making my products from home. And so I was exhausted. I burned myself out, girl. I was working 6, 7 days a week, just trying to stretching myself too thin, of course, because I wanted to serve everybody in the community. If I could have served every face in New Orleans, I would have made it happen. But to date, I've serviced over 12,000 clients since 2017. I am grateful. The New Orleans location did great. It did amazing. And then last year, I had to close that location because just I seen where the economy was going, and I didn't want any parts. But I opened up that location in 2022. I opened up the Slidell office that I'm in now, and I just continued to grow. And when I took that break, a part of me felt like I failed, but I knew I did the right thing. I made a boss move by closing that location, but I just opened up a new location back in New Orleans at 1125 North Rampart Street. It's phenomenal. The city of New Orleans is so happy that I'm back. And so my community has uprooted me, and they have built up my empire. I cannot say that I've done it alone. I've hired amazing people to work with me to help me grow and scale my business. So I'm just grateful, but it's definitely it has surpassed my limited beliefs for sure.
Wow, that is a testimony. I wanted to ask you just, and I'm happy that like you were so transparent because I think a lot of times with entrepreneurship, again, like I said, a lot of times people want the microwave results, but
Yeah.
unfortunately with entrepreneurship, that's not how it goes, especially when you're first starting out. I think a lot of people, because, and we live in a social media age, so we click on
Hmm.
social media, we see people, they're bosses, they got the expensive car, all this stuff. They never show the part where, hey, when you
Never.
started that and you really was like, okay, Lord, how am I gonna pay this bill? Because you told me, Lord, to quit this job. Now I
Yep.
can't pay these bills. Like I think everybody experienced that at one point or another. And a lot of people are just not transparent about that because you think, oh, well, if I tell people I quit this job and now I'm struggling, I'm a failure. But no, like you're not a failure. This is just part of the stages. But I think sometimes people don't understand that. And just like you mentioned, they may go through that period where it's like, okay, this is not popping like I thought. I can't pay these
Yeah.
bills. should I do? Because a lot of us are not cut out for 9 to 5s, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing wrong with people who 9 to 5 is a thing and people aren't. I just think there's this big battle, like, oh, well, why you think you can't do a 9 to 5? Like, you think you better than me? But it's not even
Girl,
that. It's
listen.
about that vision that
Mm-mm.
that person has. So, like, what inspiration, motivation did you have for entrepreneurs? Because some people just they can't deal with that part where it's like, how am I going to pay this? Or they may give up too soon. So, what would you
Yeah.
say to motivate that person?
Oh, what I would say to motivate that person is I say keep your job. I tell people all the time, AT&T was my investor. So you have to shift your mindset, and you when you go to that job, you feel like, girl, these people just my investor. Like I don't work for these people. These people investing into me. Like I'm showing up, to get my coin. So you have to shift the mindset. It's like I get to work. I get to work at this job. Like I get to get paid so I can take my money and this be my funding option, right? Because now you debt free because you let your investor, yeah, you got to show up to work. Yeah, no, we don't want to do it. Yeah, we feel like it's beyond us. But I tell people all the time, if I had to go back to AT&T today, I would, with a smile on my face, being the number one, salesperson. That's what I would do. But I just would say to any entrepreneur, shift your mindset. Don't quit your job prematurely, because there was so many dark days and so many dark times when I quit my job. My friends didn't even know. I was so shamed. I'm one of those people. I hold shame, girl. I'm like, oh Lord. And I'll talk about it later. But I learned over time that transparency was key, because being transparent, you don't know who God is going to send to save you and help you. So now I tell, if I got a $0 day, I'm going online and say, I had a $0 day. Guess what? God gonna send me about 5, 6 people to come and order something from me, because they know the product is good. They know what I have is amazing. They know that I'm transparent. They know I don't have to share these things, right? I think I overshare, but it's okay to share what you're comfortable with and let people know, because God sends you the people that you need. But don't quit your job prematurely. Create a plan. I created a business plan masterclass year before last. And it just really helps entrepreneurs understand how to get to how to not I don't like the delulu. You know how they say be delulu? Oh no, I can't be delusional. No, I need to be serious, because these bills, the light bill man want his money. He seriously want it. The rent man seriously wants it. So create a plan, write it down, be clear, put a date on it, set realistic expectations. Nobody is bigger or better than you. Nobody is better. Nobody's life is better than yours on social media. They are not showing you the hard times. Like I said, they'll tell you about it after the fact, but you wouldn't have knew what they were going through. So we all have our seasons. We all go through things. So number one, don't prematurely quit your job. Number two, be transparent. Tell people what you need. Yes, there will be some people that will laugh at you. They will mock you. They will talk about you, but guess what? God has a community for you that will come in and help you build brick by brick. Because that's all the city of New Orleans and my clients did. I told them what I wanted to do, and they came and helped me build my empire. So just believe in yourself, build community. Build community. That is really the key, because I'm telling you, there is so many times where I've just said what I needed, and I don't ask. I just kind of just say what I need, what I'm going through. And people be like, Melissa, I'll come over there and help you make soap. Melissa, I'll come and help you pack orders. I'll help you with this. People, be a good person, because people will come and help you if you are good. So showcase your good. And we all have some bad, but showcase your good, and God is going to send you the community that's for you. Don't worry about what people say or what they think, because we all have our hard times. Just some of us just don't share them.
Right, right. You're definitely right. That's a word for sure. Now, I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
too, because I know you said like you also went to a period where you were burnt out. You were, burning a candle at both ends. So I wanted to ask you because just in life in general, whether you have your own business, whether you are a mother, whether you work a 9 to 5, we have to take care of ourselves. Self care, of course, is extremely important.
Yeah.
Just pour into ourselves physically, mentally. So, what are just some of the things that you do to balance? Because I mean, you're a mother, you have a business. So, what are the things that you do to balance so that you can take care of yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Great question. So a few things that I do to balance myself. I definitely take all the time that I need for myself. Now I am in a better financial situation. So of course I get massages every single month. I go to therapy. I go to therapy every 2 weeks. That's how it is for me. I got to talk to my therapist every 2 weeks because this is not easy. It's not easy at all. It requires a listening ear, someone who can help you dissect what you are feeling. So my best investments right now are massages. It is therapy. It is working out. I work out every single day now. It really helps to release those dopamines of that stress and anxiety that you feel. So I'm working out every single day. I'm being intentional about what I'm putting into my body. I'm eating better. I journal. I write down everything that I'm thinking because it's a lot of times I want to tell a few people some dirty things, but I don't tell it to them. I write it down. So it just helps me to release. So working on ways to release, mentally, physically, and emotionally, those are the things that I do most often now. So I'm in Pilates, but I'm in all the things that like I'm in that era to where I can afford those things. But when I couldn't, I was baby doing my 4 miles at Audubon Park. I was stretching, I was eating better, I was still going to therapy because my mental health has always been a thing for me. And that's just what I do to really pour into myself. So therapy is key, y'all. I know that sometimes I think that we've worked pretty hard to normalize it in 2024. I think it's definitely a thing. Reach out to find out what resources are available to you because they are out there. You may have to pay a little coin, so you may not be able to buy that bundle, but you may have to pay your therapist. But guess what? Your therapist can help you dissect some things, so where you're probably able to get out of the bed the next day when you wouldn't have if you didn't talk to her. And now, if you're able to get out that bed, now you can go and work towards the things that you want. But therapy is key. I spend my last dollar on it.
Mm. Thank you for saying that because that's one thing that's really big on my platform. I'm speaking as a person that has PTSD and that's gone through trauma. Therapy is extremely important. And you're right. I think in 2024, we can have better conversations that we may have had, in 1995. We can talk more about therapy.
Yes.
There's still some stigmas behind it, unfortunately, that definitely exists in our community because I think sometimes people don't realize you can have God and you can also have therapy. You can have prayer and you can also have therapy. You can talk about your mental stress and still have that therapy, please. It's important to just work on our traumas because a lot of us have a lot of trauma and that trauma will control your life. Just like we talk a lot about, a lot of us experience triggers. We all have triggers. None of us have had perfect lives, so a lot of times we carry that weight. And if we carry that weight for so long, it can be so detrimental where you don't realize your full potential, where you don't find your purpose, where you don't take care of yourself, where you can't even pour into your community or your family or your friends because you're holding on to so much trauma. So I wanted to expound on that because I know just you've been very transparent about the things that you experienced. So, and I know, and I'm so happy you mentioned therapy. So I know, like you said, you do go to therapy. How do you cater to your mental health and wellness? Because that is something I wanted to ask you. We already talked about therapy. So just how do you handle, like I said, of course you do the therapy, just dealing with your mental health, taking care of it in addition to the therapy, or any other practices that you do to just have that moment where you can just shut off everything so that you're not letting that trauma guide you. So I guess a better question is, what can you give to advise other people who they don't have to let their trauma guide them? You know what I'm saying? Like you experience your dreams in spite of. And I think that's the thing. Some of us, we're struggling on how to accomplish life and purpose in spite of the past, in spite of being a single mother, in spite of having trauma. There's greater in all of us. So how are you able to just manage so that, you can take care of your mental health and still be who you are today?
Oh, one of the biggest things that I do now is I ask for help. A lot of times I was one of those people, girl. I was a I don't need nobody woman. But now I ask for the things that I need. I tell people all the time, this is true in all walks of life. A closed mouth does not get fed. And so I ask for help. I tell people what I am feeling. One of my best practices right now, because I'm a mother of three daughters. And so I when I remember just being like them being small and I would just lock myself in a room and I just remember them knocking and I would just ignore them. One of the best practices that I started to do was to let them know that mommy wasn't feeling her best today and I did need some time. And I would ask for permission from them. Can I have some time to myself? about an hour, and I will come out and talk to you guys, or we can go, take that drive and go do the things that you want to do. But I do need some time. And so it's just really about opening our mouths and saying exactly what we need. And so because my children and my initial family are the closest people to me, they are the people who have seen the worst sides of me. So I let them know exactly what I need. Like I said, I'm in my room, I'm journaling, I'm expressing myself on paper just to get it out, because a lot of us, we hold it all in. And this is why I feel like 90% of the people are just exhausted and stressed and really projecting because they don't have a safe place, right? So finding your community is very important. And fortunately, my children and my man are those people, so I let them know exactly what I need. And sometimes I used to hear this conversation like, you don't want to tell your kids what you're going through, you don't want them to feel like a burden. No, learn how to articulate to your children what you are experiencing, because at some form or another, some of these mental health challenges that we're experiencing may be genetics. Sometimes what we are experiencing, we may have exposed our children to where we might be creating a life our children need therapy from. So it's always very important to articulate to your people who are closest to you exactly what you're feeling. Find a way. And what I used to do is, another thing that I do, a best practice is, I'll record it. I'll pick up my phone and I'll say, Lord, I don't know what I'm feeling today. I might cuss, fuss, cry. I might just, and I feel those emotions. And sometimes I'll go back and be like, damn, that wasn't one of my best days. Wow, but I feel so great today. Damn, August 2019, I was so sad. But look at me, August 2024, feeling amazing. So you have to find different coping mechanisms that work for you. I say try it all and figure out what works best for you. But right now, those are the things that work for me. So when I am speaking, so some of my family members and friends, a lot of people definitely come to me for whatever reason. I am the ear, right? And these are the things that I tell them to do, so from my mouth to your ears, let people know what you're experiencing. You don't have to, overshare, but just in layman's terms, just like, hey, today is just not my day. It's just not the best day for me. Can you come back tomorrow? Can we speak tomorrow? Can we chat about it later, in the midst of, maybe confrontation or it's okay to walk away. I will, girl, in the middle of an argument, I will walk clean away from you, girl, because I'm not, give me some time. Don't act off of your emotions. Practice emotional intelligence. But the key is really just finding your community. I've learned that there are a lot of resources out here. There are a lot of people who truly care about your mental health. And we gotta put that guard down. That's number one. Putting that guard down, because we're so guarded, where we are suffering in silence because we refuse to put that guard down and let people know what we are feeling and what we're experiencing.
Right. And I think it's because that whole false strong black woman thing. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of us are strong because we didn't have a choice. It's not like, we want
Yeah.
to be strong or have any type of masculine energy, but some of us are put in positions where, like they said, you didn't have any option but to be strong. And
Yeah.
you're being strong and you're helping everybody else, and nobody's asking you, well, how are you doing? And it also
Yeah.
goes to, like you mentioned, having boundaries. When I feel like when you have a lot put on you, sometimes like we overcompensate for just some of the deficiencies we had. So if we have maybe if
Mhm.
we've had a mother wound or any type of poverty experience that we went through, once you're healing from that, you start to overcompensate sometimes for the life that you wish you had once upon a time, and then you start overexerting yourself because you want to put on this fake superhero cape, and it's mentally and physically draining and exhausting. So again, like when you're working on your healing, you start learning to have those boundaries. Like you said, you can say no, and whether that person doesn't want to hear the no is completely irrelevant, because you
Yep.
have to put your self-care and your mental health first. So speaking of, I want to ask you, on our platform, self-love is extremely important. Self-love really is the fuel to know that you're valuable, to know that you're worthy. And like you said, you knew in spite of everything that great was inside of you. And that's from coming to a place where you really love yourself. And you're like, you know what? I do deserve a better life. I know that I can achieve everything that I've dreamed of. So I want to ask you, how do you define self love and what role has it played in your life?
Oh, how do I define self love? So I define self love just being able to internalize that knowing, working on the inner you. So I said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but how you feel about yourself on the inside matters. And so self love is just really those day to day things that you do for yourself. It's the little things. I think that ultimately we feel like we have to live this lavish life, right? Like I said earlier, when I said things that I do to help with my self care, those are things in my era now because I am more financially stable. But I didn't feel any less than when I was not financially stable. So just being able to break down the fact that you are still amazing, you are still beautiful, you are still great in spite of your financial situation, in spite of your mental situation, in spite of your emotional situation. So really just self-love to me is just truly wanting to just be more and have more. And so saying to yourself every single day, I want more and I'm going to have more. Not just saying I want more, I'm going to have more, affirming that hey, I want more and I'm going to have more. And so self-love to me is just really truly believing in who you are and all the things that you say you are going to be in spite of.
Yes, yes. Believing in yourself, and I know it sounds cliche, but you have to believe in yourself
You have to.
because
Nobody else will believe
ex-
in you and what you have going on if you are not walking. And people believe. Let me tell you, I have men walk up to me all the time and say, "You're so confident." And it's just I will walk up to a food truck and somebody will spot me and say, "Oh my God, you just so confident the way you walk. Pick your head up, sis."
mm,
I hate to see people walking with their heads down. Like I'm going through stuff right now, but guess what? My head is still high. So pick your head up. I promise you, it's gonna be okay. It does get greater later. I know this for a fact. And
and
you talking to somebody who has experienced every form of adversity. I just told these people my mother has done 28 years of my life in prison, and I'm 35. My son passed away. I was 21 years old and woke up to a child who was deceased and did not know how to internalize that. You know, I have went through lights cut off. I've had evictions. I've been in horrible relationships. I have been through it all. I've been lied on. I've been stolen from. I've been through it all, but you will not know that I have been through it. And I tell people, I don't keep it back. I want you to know that I have been through it all, and now I am still walking with my head held high. I'm going through a storm right now. Here I am with my crown on. So you have to walk with your head held high in spite of.
mm, it's really like the old people say. Like I know we've all heard it in church. I don't look like what I've been through.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you embrace the things you've gone through, because a lot of us have been through some stuff that is unimaginable,
Yes.
but like you said, it's just a mindset of like, in spite of, like, I'm not gonna let the devil win, I'm not gonna let the past win, I'm not gonna let adversity win, I'm not gonna let the people who did me dirty win, like, I'm not gonna let anything win, because I'm
I
the one.
win.
Exactly. So
I win.
I love it so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm going through some emotional stuff. I feel like I want to fight back tears. Like this has been an amazing conversation.
Listen, me too, girl. I've been holding them back because it has truly. I love to speak it now. Like now, I'm so confident in just and saying it and saying with my chest out. I remember, just telling my story and like, yeah. But a lot of times, I got to a point where I didn't want to tell people all that I've been through. I stopped talking about it because I don't want to be. I don't want to be the victim. I'm not the victim anymore. I'm victorious. And so this is my story and I share it. I remember I did the news interview on Fox 8 a few weeks ago, and I was on the phone with my boyfriend, and he said, I was like, oh, Lord, I'm nervous. He was like, well, you telling your story like you making up nothing, so it should be easy, do you? So, and that's what's important, to thy own self be true. And so it feels so good to be able to verbally say it out of my mouth and be proud of what I have been through. So I am so grateful to be on your platform to share it, and I hope that it helps somebody. If it's just one person, that's more than enough for me.
And that's all that matters. If you just help one person, you've saved a life, and that's
Yep.
nothing lightly. Before we do end everything, can you please leave our audience with an affirmation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. My affirmation to you is I affirm that I will be everything that I say I will be. Everything that I say I will be, I will be. I affirm that. And so you say that in the mirror every single day to yourself. I affirm that I will be everything I say I will be. Not what they said, not what he said, not what she said, what I say. That's exactly who I will be.
I love it. I love it.
Yes,
Thank you so
ma'am.
much for your time. And
My
I love
pleasure.
that you are very good about dates. Like you've had like exact dates. I'm claiming that you need to put all this in a book because you're way too detailed to not write this down. Like you have exact dates. Like so, like I'm saying, like the story needs to go in a book. So I'm just
Yes.
pouring that into you. But
Okay,
thank you
perfect.
so much for this conversation. Like I said, this has just been just a beautiful transparency. You're a living testimony, and I know it's going to help somebody because, like you said, I can't stress it enough. I've met so many people. They are walking, living testimonies. Every single person on this earth, we were not here by mistake. God has a plan for everybody. And that plan doesn't have to be extravagant. That plan doesn't have to be on TV. That plan could just be to save one person just by sharing their story or by sharing their pain or sharing, hey, this is how I get out of bed every morning. You know, whether it's
Yep.
just to get out of bed every morning and do what you think is nothing. The fact that you were able to wake up every morning and put on that face and still live. We all have a purpose. We all have a mission in life. So I can't stress enough. Every single person has greater inside of them. And it may be hard to see because life will life, and sometimes it's hard to
Yes.
see like, God, why am I here? Or why am I going through these things? And in a perfect world, we'll sit there and say, oh, well, you know what? Oh, God gives you these things so you can overcome it. Yeah, of course we know that. But when you're going through something at the time, a lot of times it's really hard to process like why me? But
Yeah.
like I said, there's greater in everyone. So I definitely truly feel like this conversation will save somebody and they'll be like, you know what? She did it. I can do it. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And like I said, your dream does not have to be elaborate or extravagant. Whatever God put in you is for you, is not for them. And you owe it to Him to be all that you can be. So thank you guys again. This is Miss Melissa Odum from Queendom Aesthetics. Tell everybody how they can find you on social media. And also, if you're still doing your classes, tell them like how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our business page is Queendom Aesthetics. That's QUEEN_AESTHETICS. That's for all things skincare. My personal brand is Million Dollar Melissa. And Million Dollar Melissa is based off of my $1 million mindset. Don't worry, I'm not a millionaire. So Million Dollar is MILLIONDOLLAR _Melissa MELISSA. You can follow me there. I have a bunch of different courses. Like I said, I have a pay yourself masterclass where I teach entrepreneurs how to pay themselves. I have a business plan masterclass. I have a soap making class. This is how my claims to fame was soap making. I teach others how to start their own soap making businesses. I mentor, I do private trainings and coaching sessions. And you can find all of those platforms on Million Dollar Melissa's page, or you can go to milliondollarmelissa.com. If you're looking for skincare, queendomaesthetics.com. If you are an entrepreneur, a sister in business who just needs some help, needs some leadership, some mentorship, needs community, milliondollarmelissa.com is a great website where you can get one of my mini classes, private coaching, training with me as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation. This has been
My pleasure.
amazing. And like I said, I just appreciate how you pour into others because, like I said,
Thank
everybody
you.
has greatness in them. So, thank you guys again for tuning in to this episode. You can catch more episodes just like this with some amazing women. www.goqueen.com. So, just remember there is a winner in you. All you have to do is to take that step forward. If you make one step, as we know, God will make two, He'll make 10, He'll make 20. We just have to make that step first. So, thank you guys again for tuning in. Make sure you be safe and, of course, go love yourself.
She's a queen.